Hello, this is Mr. Chabry, and we're going to be a part of the NGDL Season 4. So if you don't know what the NGDL is, it is a draft league hosted by the Killer Nacho. And we were there in Season 3, and we did pretty good. We made it to the playoffs. So let's hope that we can at least get to the playoffs this season. And what I wanted to do with this draft is pick a lot of Pokemon that I've never used before. I want to get a variety of different Pokemon. So for the Kentucky Typhlosions in the NGDL Season 4, this is our team. So the first Pokemon I drafted was Ribombee. And Ribombee's a really good utility mon. The main thing I wanted with this one is sticky webs. I really love using sticky webs because you can slow down some very fast Pokemon. And in this draft league, people can also draft Ubers. So it's actually good to be able to slow down some of these Ubers that are running around. I do have Stun Spore with this thing. So even if I go for the sticky web and I need something to be even slower, I could Stun Spore it. And if I wanted to, I can go on a more offensive route with this thing. I could use Sleep Powder to put the opponent to sleep, and then try to get some Quiver Dances, Moonblast things, just do a lot of damage, hopefully. So the next Pokemon I drafted was Steelix. So at this point, I wanted to draft a Pokemon that would fit pretty well with the next Pokemon I intended to draft, and I felt like Steelix really fit pretty well, mainly because of that Steel typing. We have a lot of resistances. The Ground typing, we are immune to electricity, and that 200 defense stat is really good. I wanted to go ahead and try to get some walls here. And the Steelix was the first wall that I went ahead and drafted. This thing also gives me Stealth Rocks, so I can set up rocks and damage the opponent as they switch Pokemon in and out. So yeah, that's the main thing I wanted with Steelix. So the third Pokemon I drafted is going to be Palkia. So of course I said, you can draft Ubers in this draft league. And Palkia is an Uber that I've actually wanted to try out for a while. This thing is a Water Dragon type, and that's actually a really cool typing. There's only two types that it's weak to, and that's going to be Fairy types and Dragon types. And of course, Steelix can easily come in on those two types. So this is the Pokemon that I actually wanted to have Steelix for. Steelix can come in and sponge some of the hits that were aimed for this thing. And this thing actually has pretty good special defense at 120. But the main thing I wanted with this thing is that 150 special attack. That is really good. And we also have some good moves that Palkia can learn. We can give it Flamethrower. Of course, we could even give it Surf, Hydro Pump if we want more power. Spatial Rend is its signature move, and that is a Dragon type special move. And another thing is, this thing has pretty good attack as well. 120 attack. So if we need to, we can put a physical attack on this thing. Say our opponent throws out a special wall to take a hit from this thing. We can surprise that special wall, hit it on that physical side, and knock it out. So I feel like Palkia is going to be a very strong Pokemon. I want to use this thing because I've never used Palkia before competitively. So with Palkia here, I want to get some use out of it. I'm hoping it can actually do some good for us with these really good stats and the really good learn set that it has. So the fourth Pokemon is going to be Florges. So at this point, I wanted a specially defensive Pokemon that can sponge some special hits, and I wanted a Pokemon that could learn Defog, that can learn Wish, and I felt like Florges is a really good choice here. I can use it as a Cleric and a special defensive Pokemon, and it does have good special attack as well at 112. But the main thing I want this thing for is that defensive role, that it can perform pretty well. Of course, this gives me two Fairy types, but I'm not too worried about that because I do have some answers to Steel types and Poison types, mainly that Steelix there. And this also gives me an option. Say I have Palkia out there and they have a special attacking Dragon type. I can go into Florges because Steelix doesn't really want to take special hits that much, and Florges can take them pretty well. So at this point, I decided I wanted to draft a Mega Pokemon. First off, a Mega Pokemon that I've never used before, and a Mega Pokemon that was relatively cheap. And Mega Absol is the Pokemon I decided to try out. So this thing has really good attack at 150. That's pretty much the same level of attack as Palkia has in special attack. So this one can be more a threat on that physical side. This thing also has really decent special attack at 115. So if I wanted to, I could run a mixed Mega Absol, or I can even go all in on that special attack. And it does have a good range of special attacks that it can learn. Also, this thing has Magic Bounce. So with Magic Bounce, I can basically not worry about Stealth Rocks being thrown on my side. The opponent setting up their own Sticky Web, or even the opponent going for a Toxic or even a Will-O-Wisp. All those things would bounce off of Mega Absol and bounce back onto the opponent. So I feel like Mega Absol is going to be a very interesting Pokemon to use, and I hope it actually does pretty good in this draft league. Of course, the one downside I do have to say is it's very frail. Looking at the defense stat and special defense stat, this thing will not take hits very well, so I'm going to have to be careful about that. But if I can bring this thing in, maybe even get it set up with a Swords Dance, I could knock out a lot of Pokemon. So at this point of the draft, I decided I wanted to find a bulkier Pokemon that could also deal out some damage, and I decided to go with Alolan Marowak. So Alolan Marowak, it's got that fire typing, and up to this point I didn't have any fire type Pokemon, so I think I really wanted a fire type on my team. It also gives me the ghost typing, which gives me an answer to fighting types. Up to this point, I noticed I was having a few problems with fighting type Pokemon. Mega Absol doesn't want to face a fighting type, and my defensive Mon, Steelix, doesn't want to face a fighting type. So I could switch in Alolan Marowak on a fighting type physical attacker. And Alolan Marowak has 110 defense. That's pretty good. It's got 80 attack, which is actually doubled by its significant item, the Thick Club. So with that, it's got 160 attack, and it can hit really hard with Flare Blitz. It can hit pretty hard with Shadow Bone too. So it's got good coverage. This thing is a really nice Pokemon. I have used a Fire Ghost type before with Chandelier in the PGBL Season 2. So we're going to see if a physical version of that works. So at this point, I decided I wanted a normal flying type Pokemon. And the first Pokemon I was wanting to choose with this typing was Braviary. But right before it was my turn to pick a Pokemon, someone drafted it. So I had to pick another Pokemon to replace Braviary. I ended up going with Dodrio. So Dodrio has some things that actually makes it better than Braviary. It's got better speed, and I don't have to worry about putting a Choice Scarf on it to outspeed things. And it also has 110 attack. It's not as much as Braviary, but if you go ahead and put a Choice Band on this thing, it's going to be doing a ton of damage. And it's already got good speed, so it's going to be outspeeding a lot of things. Plus, if I can get Sticky Webs up, even the Pokemon that normally would outspeed this thing will be having a hard time. And it's got a pretty interesting moveset. Brave Bird probably be the main go-to, maybe even Return. It does get Jump Kick too, so we can give it Jump Kick and hit some things on that, like with fighting type moves. Say someone sends out a rock type, I can hit it and at least have a super effective option against it. Another thing I could probably give this thing is Quick Attack. A Choice Bandit Quick Attack from Dodrio. It might actually come in handy in certain situations, so I'm hoping this Pokemon actually does some good work. So the next round, I was actually still in the mood for a bulkier offensive threat. Dodrio is so frail that I felt like I needed to pick something to, you know, balance out my team. So I went with Machamp. And Machamp, if I were to give it an Assault Vest, it would actually have really good special defense. This thing has 130 attack, which is pretty nice. I could go with a no guard set, have Dynamic Punch. Dynamic Punch always confuses the opponent, so that might come in handy. I could go with a Gut set as well, and honestly the Gut set is the one that I'm more familiar with. With the Gut set, I don't have to worry about being burnt or, you know, even paralyzed. Paralyzed is a little bit more annoying, but if I get burnt, that will just, you know, maximize my damage output. And if I had that with some Fighting Stab, that would just make it do a lot of damage. I could even go with a set that has the Assault Vest and the Guts ability. The opponent would see that I have the Assault Vest and maybe think, oh, this isn't Guts. I can burn it, and I get burnt. Boom! I'm doing a lot of damage, and I still have some good special defense. So I feel like Machamp's going to be a very helpful Pokemon on my team. So the 9th Pokemon I drafted was Luxray, and at this point I decided I wanted an electric type. I would much have rather had Electivire, but it got drafted before it got to me, so I went with Luxray instead. And this thing has pretty good attack, 120. It does have 95 special attack, which isn't the best, but with that I can actually do a little bit of damage with a Volt Switch. This thing is pretty slow with 70 speed, but with Sticky Web, that might help balance it out some. So I'm hoping this thing will actually do some work. It does have Intimidate, and I feel like Intimidate will actually help out pretty nicely. Say my opponent has a really strong physical attacker out there. I can send out Luxray for the Intimidate, intimidate it, switch it back out with Volt Switch, and bring it back in and Intimidate again. So I'm hoping Luxray will actually do some work for me. Of course, it's not the best electric type, but I'm hoping still that it can do some work. So the last Pokemon that I drafted for the Kentucky Typhlosions is Exeggutor. So of course at this point I noticed I didn't have a grass type, and I wanted a special attacker. I didn't want to draft another physical attacker, so I went ahead, drafted Exeggutor. And this thing gives me that grass typing. It's also psychic typing, so maybe I can hit things with a psychic here and there. Of course, it is pretty slow, but say my opponent sets up the sun, or I could even put Sunny Day on this thing and, you know, boost its speed with Chlorophyll. That 55 speed will become 110, and that's actually pretty good, especially if I can get those Sticky Webs up. That means Exeggutor is going to be outspeeding things. And this is another Pokemon that I've never really used before, so I want to actually get some use out of this, and I'm hoping that this also contributes to the team. So there it is, the team for the Kentucky Typhlosions, NGDL Season 4. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts? Leave that down in the comments. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe for some more Pokemon content, and keep your eyes peeled, because not only have we joined the NGDL Season 4, we have also joined the PGBL Season 4, so we're going to be having 2 sets of Draft League battles going on this summer. If you love Draft Leagues, you're going to be excited. So, like I said, if you like this, give it a thumbs up, subscribe. I will see you in the next Pokemon video.